Welcome to the Data World Friday. My name is Michael Olschimke. I'm the CEO of Scalefree. We run this session here every Friday to allow you, the audience, to ask questions about Data Vault, distributed computing, cloud computing, MVP clusters, and so on. So all data-driven questions are allowed, essentially. And we received a question here, a very generic one, though. Let me just show, but it's okay. So nothing bad about it. So how to tackle GDPR with Data Vault? Because this person here have heard that Data Vault is great for dealing with GDPR, and that's true. So GDPR, at least from a data modeling perspective, has two aspects that are interested in where we have a solution. Let's say that, or an easy solution. One is data security, and the other one is data privacy. Data security is all about securing the data that exists. So the data is there, but you might not have access to it. And then privacy is all about deleting personal data. And in the best case, you don't want to delete the whole record, the whole, let's say, customer record or lead record or so, whatever. You want to reduce the record by the personal attributes. And those two aspects are great at Data Vault because those are security and privacy were two early requirements of the initial Data Vault design. And that's why they have been solved by design, essentially. So both are based on satellite splits. At least, let's take this down a bit. So let's talk about security first, because there we have two aspects. With security, it's all about row level security and column level security. And in many cases, you want to do both. And then we talk about cell level security. And the column level security, that's what we achieve with a satellite split. At least if the database technology doesn't provide you anything else. And the basic idea for the column split for security is essentially that we separate the attributes by security classification. One satellite in the Data Vault design per security classification of your attributes, and then you can have grants on the satellites. That essentially gives access to these attributes to those users who have access to these columns. And then the row level security is typically implemented either using a row level security from the database, if it's sufficient, or you use a view layer where you filter for the records this particular user should see based on an access control list. You filter down essentially using the view layer. That gives you a cell level security. That's one aspect of GDPR because you have to reduce the data, the amount of data a certain user can see down to the level, to the need to know basis, essentially. What kind of data do they need to see? They should not see all data. And then privacy is all about deleting data, as I said. And with Data Vault design on the relation database, we can support a physical deletion of data. And that's done by, the base principle for this is that you always have to separate the personal data from the non-personal data. Well, first of all, in Data Vault, you can have more than two classes. You're not limited to personal data, non-personal data. You can have much more classes than that, just like in security. So we can have multiple classes, and for every class, we again perform a satellite split. So there's one satellite in a Data Vault design for the personal attributes, and one satellite, for example, for the non-personal attributes, and many more satellites if you need. And when you need to delete the personal data, you remove the deltas from the personal satellite describing your customer records, for example. That's how we get rid of this data. Now, when I say one satellite per privacy class, it's not fully true. It's all about the data retention policy. So how long can you keep the data if the request comes in, and to exercise the right to be forgotten, essentially. Now, if there's any deviation, sorry. So if there's any deviation, let's say you have certain attributes, certain personal attributes, which you have to delete within, I don't know, 30 days after the removal request, then that's one class. If there's some other attributes where you can take them for, let's say, 60 days, according to the lawyers in your organization, then that's another class, because it's all about deleting those deltas separately. So if you have two different data retention periods for two different sets of personal attributes, then this requires two different satellites. Okay, so it's a bit simplified when we say it's about personal and non-personal attributes. It's really about how long do you have time to delete the personal data, essentially. And then that way, when you delete the personal data deltas from the satellite, you're reducing the consumer record by the personal attributes, essentially. That's the basic idea. Where what's missing is you also have to rebuild the PRT tables by dropping at least the PIT records for this for the hash keys of the customer records where you have to reuse something, and then rebuild the pit table for those records again. And then what happens is, by design, the pit table can't find a delta in the person satellite anymore, so it refers to the ghost record in the satellite, and therefore anonymizing your data sets. That's it, or your dimensions. That's it. So by design, you just get rid of these deltas, these person attributes, and that's it. That's all by design. So we don't have to do much to do it. We just have to classify the attributes and split the satellites accordingly, or secure the raw data vault and every subsequent layer by the view layer, essentially, to reduce the records a user can see based on access controllers. And the access controls in security, that's just a data set. So you have to define somewhere who can read what. Which users in which user groups can access bank accounts for certain customers. So you need to define your ACL, and then you define this ACL data set, maybe in the worst case, some Excel sheet. I don't recommend that, but maybe some database where you define the access control. That access control list becomes then just a data source to your raw data vault. So you stage the data in the data lake, you load the data in the raw data vault. And I would model an access control list when I talk about users, user groups, and customers and bank accounts. So for me, at least, it sounds like 4 hubs. A user hub, user group hub, customer hub, which you might have already, and the bank account hub, and the link in between. And because most of our clients, they want to adjust from when to when a user can read records for a certain customer, there should be an effectivity satellite attached to the link as well. From when to when did this user in this user group had access to those customers with those bank accounts? That's the effectivity satellite. And that's the raw data vault designed for the ACL. And that's what you then join in the view layer on top of the customer hub, its satellites, all the links referring to the customer hub. You join this ACL link and reduce the records according to the ACL, what you, the active user, can read, essentially. That's the basic idea. Important is you always separate the discussion for security and privacy. They should don't put those the head of or the chief data security officer and the chief data privacy officer in the same room, in my opinion. Separate that, because security is really about, we have the data, we don't delete it, it's there. But this particular user don't have access to the data because the access control list doesn't allow that. We're filtering out the data that this user can see. While privacy is all about deletion. We're deleting those records. We're deleting those attributes from the database so it's gone. You have to think about the backup and so on, right? But you have to remove it. Filtering is not a solution for GDPR. I'm not a lawyer here. That's not legal advice, right? But that's just my opinion. Let's say that. So filtering is not a solution itself. Is that Scalefree implements for deleting data. Let's say that. So that's just my 2 cents. So and that's what's happening sometimes when we put them in the same room. They start filtering, they start hiding data and assume this is deleted. But no, it's still there. You just don't see it, but it's still there. All right. So and that's by design in Data Vault. It's a cool thing because of the early requirements, essentially. All right. If you have a question like this, good question. Use this form behind this URL, sfr.ee/dbfriday. That's where you can submit questions, submit images or diagrams, team pictures if you want, white paper or whiteboard pictures or something with drawings to explain your issue, and then we pick it up and explain it, essentially. There's also additional webinars for DBT and Webscape. If you go for scalefree.to/webinars, that's where our tool experts are talking essentially about these tools. And if you can't wait until next Friday, then come for the Data Innovators Exchange. That's a forum-style community where you can ask questions, and people from Ignition Data and from Scalefree, they will answer it as quick as possible because there's little competition going on who can answer or who's fastest in answering those questions, essentially. So you don't have to wait until next Friday. Okay, cool. So thanks for joining. Here it's snowing, so let's see how the weekend will become. We will be sliding and all kinds of stuff, right? So it's really fun. Cool. Thanks for joining. See you next Friday, guys.